The main square of the city was, as always, quite lively, despite the very late time of day. At this time, one man had comfortably settled down in one part of the square and was greedily gobbling up a flatbread with meat. He ate with such a brutal appetite that after a while even passers-by began to involuntarily pay attention to him. One of the guys passing by asked those around him if they should have stopped the man chewing. The guy was worried that the man could die from the huge amount of food he ate. Also strange was the fact that the man cried while he was eating, but still did not stop and stuffed the dishes into himself one after another. Another passerby noted that the first one seemed to be seeing this man for the first time, although this gentleman was quite famous in Henan. The guy asked if the man was famous for his appearance, to which he was told that he should not judge people only by their appearance. The second passerby said that although the guy was not from around here, he must have heard of this gentleman. He had accomplished an unprecedented feat by single-handedly uniting trade unions throughout Henan. The first passerby was so surprised by this fact that he even asked the second one whether he had heard correctly, to which he received an affirmative answer. The man who was already eating meat was a great merchant who made an invaluable contribution to the business, Manhua Rin of the Heavenly Ocean Trade Union. Suddenly a loud and confident voice was heard, which ordered the man to stop, and this person pointed a finger at him. It was an elderly woman who said that a normal person eats 3 times a day, and this gentleman ate a 3-day supply in one meal. She could not believe that in his youth this gentleman had been remarkable for his appearance, but now she constantly repeated to him that if he continued to eat so much, he would harm himself. The merchant turned to her and said menacingly that if he did not stop eating, something would continue to haunt him. He said that that terrible day would constantly haunt him in his memories if he did not stop, which made the woman stunned, understanding what he was talking about. She could no longer argue with him, so she obediently let go of the sleeve by which she was trying to pull Huarin away from the table. But the woman did not give up hope of influencing the merchant, so she sternly asked him if he really was going to die face down in the salad. That same night, after leaving the cafe, the man was riding somewhere in his cart, thoughtfully sorting through his various goods in his hands. A woman was riding with him, and she sat quite quietly. Huarin told her that all his riches now began to seem so meaningless to him. He kept trying to disguise the wound that would not heal with his gluttony and luxurious jewelry, but he was not succeeding at all. He was simply deceiving himself. The man had been living this way for many years, but now he began to understand that the pain of losing people should only be healed by people. He still had nightmares about that terrible day from his past. When the woman spoke to him, Huarin smiled and remarked that it had been an eternity since he had made the Heavenly Ocean Trade Union his home, and yet she still called him young master instead of chief merchant. The brunette smiled tenderly back at him and said that no matter how much time passed, he would always be the young master of the Tianzhong clan waiting for her. The night conversation made Huarin think about many things, and only now did he notice for the first time that the woman had wrinkles. When the merchant in the past left his clan and married into another family, Yunhua, that was the name of the woman before him, followed the master and continued to serve him all these years. She was not just a servant to him, but family. On that very day that left its mark on Huarin's life, the Tianzhong clan, to which the lord belonged, came to an end. Huarin made no secret of the fact that he sincerely despised his family. And most of all of his relatives he hated his father. Once, in his youth, Huarin told Yunhua that from now on the large statue in their yard would serve in his place, so if his father called the boy, the servant would direct him to this statue. And very soon after this incident, Huarin completely turned his back on the family. Despite being the eldest son of a once prosperous martial arts clan, Huarin was essentially sold into a Heavenly Ocean Trade Union in a marriage of convenience, and he did not refuse. A few years later, the Tianzhong clan was attacked by the Dabi sect. Huarin was consumed by grief and regret, kneeling in despair in front of his burning house. As Huarin watched his clan being consumed by flames, he realized that as much as he hated his father, he loved him. No matter how much the guy despised his family, no matter how rudely he treated them, he couldn't stop crying, realizing that he had lost them all. Despite his character, the guy cherished his family, and now they were all gone from his life at once. The brunette, in despair, banged his head against the very same stone statue that he supposedly left in his place, and there was no consolation for him. He realized how stupid and cruel he had been. Yunhua tried to stop the young master, because if he continued to mutilate himself out of grief, there could be irreparable consequences. The guy could barely stand on his feet. The servant managed to pull him away from the unfortunate sculpture. Hua Rin was tormented by a large tremor throughout his body. Now, after so many years, Hua Rin, riding in the same carriage with Yunhua, promised that he would change. He was going to restore his relationship with his wife and promised to lose all that damn fat. He had had plenty of time to grieve, so from now on he was determined to serve the family he had. He was a little worried about how cold his wife might be, though. The man sincerely admitted that Yunhua was like family to him, so he did not want to disappoint her too. Yunhua wanted to answer him something, but did not have time to finish. An unknown man flew into their cart, completely breaking through the wall of the cart with his body. The horses stopped instantly, and the cart staggered, on the verge of overturning with a roar. The impact was so strong that Hua Rin and Yunhua were thrown out. The pieces of the destroyed cart flew in all directions, as did the goods that were inside it. But the man who had crashed into them and caused all this chaos was not the only one to blame for what had happened. Not far away stood a grey-haired man, and it was he who had thrown his opponent into the cart. Apparently, this fierce battle had been going on for some time, judging by the man's battered appearance. He had been beaten, and he himself had the feeling that his insides had been damaged. But it wasn't just the guy who was thrown aside who was the old warrior's opponent. Nimble ninjas were already rushing towards him. One of them took his katana out of its sheath and attacked the enemy, but the latter was no slouch either, reacting to the attack in time. The sword pierced the grey-haired warrior's arm, but he didn't even bat an eyelid, heroically enduring the unbearable pain. The main thing is that the enemy's weapon was stopped. The man was filled with hatred and anger. He angrily asked his opponent how they dared to betray him. No matter how strong he was, his opponents were many times superior to him, so the next moment they all attacked at once, and the man had no chance to survive, having received many stab wounds. One of them, looking dangerously at the grey-haired man from under his brows, said that this is how the almighty Lord of Demons met his end. He was their teacher, but now the group of secretive warriors said goodbye to him. The man could not believe that he had been killed by his own students. He whispered curses furiously. He cursed them and the castle of the bloody demon. Having gathered his last vital forces, the teacher was able to use magic to create a powerful energy wave that instantly threw the warriors away from him in different directions. Meanwhile, Hua Rin, who had lost consciousness for a while from the strong blow, began to slowly come to his senses. He raised himself up on the ground, looking around with a clouded gaze, trying to understand what had happened to him. Ignoring the pain in his entire body, the man focused his full attention on Yunhua, who was lying on the grass not far from him. Hua Rin was so worried about the safety of this woman that he immediately jumped to his feet and rushed towards her. The merchant wanted to hope that his loved one was okay, but he was out of luck. When he ran up to the brunette, he discovered to his horror that she was not breathing. At this time, the teacher, although he had dealt with his students, had wounds that were incompatible with life, so he whispered something under his breath about how he needed to find a new body before his heart stopped. His only chance of salvation was to use the spirit possession technique. The wounds began to hurt more and more with each passing second, and the man already felt death breathing down his neck. Was this really the end of his journey? But the teacher's thoughts were interrupted at that very moment by a stern male voice calling him. It was Hua Rin, who said that he had lost a member of his family because she had fallen into the old man's hands. Tears were streaming down the dark-haired man's cheeks. He was trying to get the warrior to tell him something. Hua Rin's family had just lost their lives. Why did the warrior have to fight here? Instead of any intelligible answer, the grey-haired man stretched out his hand forward and struck the man with one powerful blow. The old man attacked the acupuncture points, thereby throwing the merchant off balance. Hua Rin, unable to react in time to the man's attack, fell to the ground, squinting from the unpleasant pain throughout his body. The next moment the merchant noticed with horror that he could no longer even stand up. His body did not move at all and did not obey his will. The demon lord could hardly stand on his feet, but he did not allow the piercing pain to knock him down. He said with an evil sparkle in his eyes that Hua Rin should not have treated the wounded old man like that. Hua Rin knew that this old man was a martial artist, but he lost his temper, thereby asking for retribution. Since the old man's strength was running out, he had to save himself quickly. This was the last time he would use the spirit possession technique. It would be impossible to use it again. For this reason, the demon lord wanted to find a young and talented body for himself to live a long life, but now he was close to death, so he had no other choice. The old man had to survive, even if he had to transfer his soul into the body of some fat swindler. For the technique to work, the first thing to do was to introduce 160 years of martial essence of true chi into the left hand. After this, the old man introduced the culmination of his soul, his spirit, into his right hand. And then with both hands, he had to transfer all this power into his new body. The ritual was successful, and after a few moments the soul of the elder found itself in the body of the merchant, and his past met its end. Completely emotionless, the new owner of Huarin's body pushed his previous body away from himself, rising to his feet. The old man was about to rejoice that he had succeeded, but suddenly he felt pain and resistance from the second soul. Huarin should have been suppressed by the teacher's true ki and his spiritual power, but this did not happen. Huarin's strength of spirit was too much for the old man to handle. The merchant could not allow himself to die in such a way. Huarin's soul fought desperately inside his body with the soul of the demon lord. The dark-haired man could not lose. He had to survive and avenge his clan. The old man honestly admitted that he was amazed by the will of his opponent, but in any case he considered his resistance a waste of time. Their fight did not last long, and after a few moments, Huarin felt his consciousness slowly begin to fade and dissolve into the darkness. Behind Huarin's body, there was one ninja who had not been subdued by the teacher's magic. He was mercilessly clutching his weapon in his hand. The disciple turned to Huarin's body and asked if his teacher had really changed bodies. He was greatly shocked. It seemed that the countless demonic followers of the three demonic heavens had a reason to call the old man their master. But now all this was not important, because the task of the disciples was to end the life of the leader, which is what the brave warrior was going to do. The spirit possession technique was almost complete, but the old man did not have enough time to finish it. The student's katana, having hit its target, ruined his plans. And after the attack of the student and the deprivation of life from Huarin's body, a deafening emptiness followed. But to the merchant's great surprise, he woke up after a while, feeling how his head was splitting. He looked around, trying to figure out where he was, but immediately felt how dry his throat was, so he took the saucer of water that stood next to him and took a sip from it. The liquid in the plate was surprisingly bitter, so he must have just drunk some medicine. Suddenly, Huarin, having recovered a little from sleep, noticed his hands, which looked completely unusual to him. He dropped the saucer he had been holding in his hands, but he did not pay much attention to it because his attention was completely concentrated on his own palms. At that moment, a petite girl flew into the room, addressed him as a young master, and asked if he was okay. The girl heard the saucer break when Huarin dropped it in surprise and shock, so she ran to check if everything was okay with him. The guy, ignoring the girl's questions, grabbed her by the shoulders and began to shake her, asking in an uncertain voice whether the girl was his servant Yunhua, and if he was not mistaken, how the woman managed to become younger. The girl really was Yunhua, but she didn't understand what the young gentleman was talking about, thinking that the guy had another nightmare. Huarin himself was almost convinced that everything that was happening was just a dream. At that very moment, he deliberately stepped on one of the fragments of the broken saucer, which immediately cut his foot with its sharp end. But Huarin didn't care about the pain itself. It was a very insignificant problem in this situation. The girl worriedly asked the young master why he stepped on the shard. The guy wanted to make sure that he was dreaming everything that was happening, but the pain in his dreams had never been so realistic. Could his guesses have been correct? Without explaining anything, the dark-haired man went out into the yard, and Yunhua followed him, trying to stop the guy, saying that he shouldn't have moved with an injured leg. But Huarin didn't listen to her. He looked around the estate courtyard, and his gaze caught on the very statue that featured in his story about the fall of the clan. The boy extended his trembling hand to the statue, not believing his eyes. Yunhua, who had been following the young master all this time, was very concerned about his strange behavior. The boy had tears running down his cheeks. He asked Yunhua how long ago he had erected this statue, which represented his refusal to see his own father. The excited girl replied that he had done it 5 days ago. After these words, Huarin took the stone figure by the shoulders and leaned his head back strongly away from it, as if swinging. The brunette hit the stone head with his forehead as hard as he could. The force of his blow was so great that the sculpture even cracked, and the guy managed to break his forehead. But the young man did not stop there. With another blow, he completely knocked the statue to the ground. The statue shattered into many stones of various shapes. Huarin completely destroyed it, which greatly surprised the maid who was watching him. Grinding his teeth, the guy endured the unbearable pain that enveloped his head. Now he was finally convinced that it was not a dream. He did not know how, but he managed to return to the past. Judging by the fact that he had erected this statue, which was lying in pieces at his feet 5 days ago, Huarin could roughly understand what time he was in. If he remembered correctly, he had only 3 years before the moment when their clan was supposed to fall at the hands of the enemy. Both Yunhua and the other servants who had come running at the noise looked at their lord in bewilderment, terribly frightened by his nervousness and strange actions. But Huarin didn't pay any attention to what was happening around him right now. His thoughts were occupied with the fact that he had an opportunity to protect his people and the Tianzhong clan at any cost. The Tianzhong clan was a martial clan located near the mountain of the same name in Henan, and since ancient times several families named themselves after this mountain, but they were all united by the Yong clan. The people of Henan gave it the name Yong Tianzhong clan. Those who remembered those times glorified this clan. However, after some time, the fame of the Yong Tianzhong clan began to fade, and people stopped praising it. Now it became just the Tianzhong clan. The head of the Tianzhong clan was Huarin's father, Yonbi Yang. That day he was drinking tea and thinking about how 30 years had passed without them having a single martial arts master. The last master he could remember was Elder Yongu-san, the supreme dragon of Henan. He discussed this with a woman in the garden, saying that everyone now considered their clan to be nothing more than a shadow of what it once was. It was sad that they couldn't even deny it. The woman who was the leader's wife said that they could only hope that Huarin would recover and lead them to a better future. However, the husband was uneasy because his son hated him so much. The leader always acted according to his own reasons, but it seemed to be his fault that he remarried too quickly when Huarin had not yet had time to get over his mother's death. His wife didn't want Bi Yang to be so hard on himself, so she said that they should be patient. Maybe Huarin just needed more time to accept the changes in his life. Bi Yan thought that with time everything would get better in their life, but now it seemed to him that the gap between him and his son was only getting deeper every day. When his father came to him 5 days ago, Huarin placed a statue in his garden and asked the chief to pretend that the statue was his son. The man was about to apologize to his wife for complaining too much, when suddenly their conversation was interrupted by Yunhua flying into the garden. Puzzled by the sudden appearance of the maid, Bi Yan asked the girl what was the reason for such a hurry. The brunette tried to explain what was going on, saying something about the young gentleman, but because she was crying so hard, she couldn't even put 2 words together. The leader tried to calm her down, and then Yunhua was able to explain that she was worried that the young master had gotten hurt and lost consciousness. This happened just after he had smashed the statue in the garden with his head. They washed him, bandaged his head, and carried him to his chambers, putting him to bed. The boy was delirious, and had a wonderful dream about a waterfall in which he had splashed as a child. Huarin's mother asked the boy if he liked the waterfall, to which the happy child gave a confident affirmative answer. There were a lot of koi fish in the waterfall. At the same time, the happy little boy caught a huge fish with both hands, larger than his head, and called his mother to look at this achievement. But the woman did not respond to her son's call, and then the boy noticed that she was lying unconscious on the coastal rocks. The servants took the boy away and took the woman to her chambers, laying her down on the bed. She felt very ill, and the son sat next to his parent the whole time. The boy cried, realizing how his mother was suffering now, but the woman did not show her pain. On the contrary, she smiled at him. She apologized to him for the fact that she could no longer accompany him to the waterfall to catch fish together. She hugged the brunette to her chest and assured him that she was okay, so he could stop crying. And the next moment his mother's voice became frighteningly low. She told him to stop these damn tears. She said it in such a way that the guy froze in horror. When he raised his head, he noticed that he was no longer buried in his mother's soft embrace, but standing next to the very same demon lord who had taken his life and was trying to take his body. The old man was yelling at him, telling him that he was weak. Suddenly the old man opened his mouth, turning into a monster, and showed the boy 2 rows of huge, sharp fangs, preparing to eat his head as a dessert. Huarin immediately woke up from his sleep, jumping on his bed. Sweat appeared on the guy's face, and goosebumps ran across his skin from this frightening nightmare. He looked around the room he was in, making sure he was fully awake. He tried to figure out where he was and what had happened. The place he found himself in seemed surprisingly familiar to him, but at the same time it looked alien to him. It was a room from the time of his youth. If he was still here, then somehow after his death, Hrarin managed to return to the past, and the conversation with Yunhua, the broken statue, were not just a vision. The young man pursed his lips. Now he was again faced with his past, when he hated his father and was isolated from his family. The fact that he went back in time meant that he now had to relive the death of his family and the fall of his clan. But now that he knew the future, Hrarin had a unique opportunity to change the terrible course of the past. While he was thinking about this, the brunette heard the gossip of a couple of girls who were standing in the courtyard, not far from the entrance to his room. They were discussing the fact that the guy really did destroy the statue by hitting it with his head. It was hard to believe because the guy was always bedridden with illness and had never even studied any martial arts. One of the girls said this, but her friend confirmed the truth of the rumors, saying that she saw what was happening with her own eyes. They even managed to entertain the idea that Hrarin was possessed until he jumped out of bed and ran out into the yard, throwing the doors of the house wide open, interrupting the girls' conversation. The gossips immediately tried to justify themselves, explaining to the brunette, who clearly heard them, that they did not mean anything bad when they spoke about him. But it wasn't the girls that interested Hrarin. He was bothered by the anxiety that he suddenly felt too hot, and the heat was coming from his body, from his lower dantian. For some reason, the guy got the idea that in order to ease all these feelings, he needed a woman. But it was so surprising, because all this time it was difficult for him even to walk, and then such unbridled sensations overwhelmed him. And then he realized that he felt the energy of that old man who wanted to take his body before he died. The power was too much, and it spread like yang energy. Some part of the demon lord still remained in his body and consciousness. And the longer the guy stood still, the more strength and energy he felt, which was not good, because he could not cope with it. Simply doing nothing was not an option, so the young man quickly dashed past the gossips. If he hadn't done something with his power urgently, he might have done something he shouldn't have. The frightened girls watched him go, unable to stop the guy. They thought that Hrarin was dressed too lightly, since it was still quite cold outside. But considering that the guy's whole body was burning with fire from an excess of energy, he ran deep into the forest, not noticing what the weather was like outside. He ran forward without stopping, trying to think of a plan of action as he went. The old man's energy could consume him if he did not do something right now. Soon the guy reached the waterfall, which could not but please, because the refreshing river water could be his salvation. That is why the guy, without thinking, rushed into the water, immediately feeling how the frightening heat receded and the body finally returned to normal. And the next moment, before Hrarin had time to come to his senses, he noticed that his own father was rushing towards him with all his might, and a whole crowd of people was following him. The people remained to watch what was happening from the shore, but the headman, not afraid of the icy river water, rushed to his son, asking him what he was doing there. The frightened father grabbed his son's head with both hands and told him that he knew that his son hated him, but it was not worth sitting in the water on such a cold day because of that. Noticing the boy's bandaged head, the man worriedly asked Hrarin what happened to his forehead and if he was okay. At that moment, the boy realized how much he missed his father. But the problem was that if Hrarin suddenly became affectionate now, everyone would find his behavior terribly strange. No matter how much the brunette wanted to make peace with his father as soon as possible, for now he had to get closer to him in a natural way, so that those around him would not have unnecessary suspicions. The boy hugged his parent back, hiding his face in his shoulder. Slowly he was planning to mend his relationship with his father. The leader, unable to stop his tears, held his child close to him, listening to Hrarin struggle to formulate his thoughts. The young man was finally able to fully feel that he had returned home. If it had been a dream, he wanted never to wake up again, and if it had been an illusion, he wanted never to open his eyes. 3 months have passed since Hrarin woke up in the morning and found himself transported to the past. He was sitting on a bridge with his younger brother, fishing in the river. Yongki-jun, Hwarin's younger half-brother, smiled and told him that he probably could have won their bet. The older brother asked him with a grin if he had been fishing all his life to achieve such results. Hua Rin had become much closer to his family in the past few months. In his previous life, he didn't even talk to Qizhong. Qizhong studied the clan's secret martial technique and suffered a qi blockage. After that, he could do almost nothing, causing the Tianzhong clan to lose influence and become a branch of the Yuqi clan. At that time, Hua Rin had already become the son-in-law of the Sky Ocean Trade Union and was too busy, and then he heard the news about the family, but it was too late. He could not help them in any way. Brother suddenly asked Hua Rin why he refused the medicine he was taking, and the guy answered that he got fat from it. Brother did not understand when Hua Rin had been fat, and he stopped short, realizing that he had almost given himself away so stupidly. The boy noted that, be that as it may, he liked the way his brother had been behaving lately. Hua Rin gave Qijun some slack, using bets as an excuse. The younger showed him 2 baskets, and judging by the fact that Qijun's basket had more fish, he could call himself the winner of the bet. Deciding that the elder simply could not afford to lose again, he took both baskets and threw all the fish they had caught into the water. Qizhong, offended and disappointed, shouted that his elder brother had cheated. And after that, the brunette picked up his little brother in his arms and shouted triumphantly that he had caught a very big fish, jumping into the water with him. Soaking wet but happy with the time they had spent together, the brothers laughed. Hua Rin was especially happy that he started communicating with the younger one. He had no idea that Qijun was such a smart child. In his past life, Hua Rin had put too much burden on him, for which he mentally apologized to the younger one, but in this life he would not allow that mistake to be repeated. The boys gathered their fishing gear and wandered home. When Hua Rin was away from his family, he devoted himself to training. Every day the brunette tested his endurance and tried to become stronger. Before he began training in martial arts, he had to make sure that he was in good physical shape. Sometimes he was worried that the old man's energy could do something to him, but so far these forces had not caused the boy any trouble. However, because of that incident when the enemy's energy suddenly burst out, he developed a habit of meditating under the waterfall. One morning, when Hua Rin was following his usual habit of meditating, his younger sister brought him a towel. Yon Xiaolan, that was the name of the girl who was a little younger than Qijun, stood on the shore with a towel and smiled softly at her older brother. After coming out of the water, Hua Rin reminded her that Xiaolan shouldn't have cared so much about him, but the girl admitted that she just liked that they were friends now. He remembered that even though he hadn't interacted with Qijun at all in his past life, he had been rude to his sister Hua Rin several times, although she had always been very nice. Xiaolan was active and friendly, and also loved to attend fireworks events. The girl often asked the boy to go with her to the fireworks festival, but every time she did, Hua Rin would get angry as if she was making fun of him. One day the boy completely lost his temper and ordered his sister never to ask him about such nonsense again. He never went to the party with her again. In her past life, the girl managed to propose to him twice and was rejected both times, leaving her brother in tears and with a broken heart. The suggestion to go and watch the fireworks together was the last time Hua Rin communicated with her. On the way to the festival, Xiaolan was killed by someone, and their father personally investigated the case. However, after some time, an attempt was made on his life as well. In the past, Xiaolan had asked him to accompany her to a festival twice. The first time was supposed to be on this day, the Moon Festival, and the second time was supposed to be a year later, the Yon Clan Festival. And on the next festival, she was supposed to be killed. Not missing the chance to catch up, Hua Rin, while putting on dry clothes, reminded the younger one that she told him that today was the Moon Festival. The girl thought that her brother would forget about her request. She could not believe that Hua Rin would actually accompany her to the holiday. Pulling on his kimono, the boy confirmed that of course he would go, so he and his sister should go together to get her new clothes. The younger one happily agreed and offered to go get them right away. Communication with his sister was another precious opportunity that came into his life. He could not let the past repeat itself and let his sister die at such a young age. But in order to protect his family from all the horrors that fate had in store for them, Hua Rin had to become stronger. He needed to become strong enough to protect his family and bring glory back to his clan. A neat line of more than a dozen training warriors emerged into the yard for another training session. Among them was Hua Rin. Initially, while he was only doing what he did was drinking medicine in his room and reading books, he never showed his nose outside. But now everything has changed. Ironically, it was due to the sinister aura of the old man who wanted to take over his body. Having regained his youthful form, Hua-Rin still had the desire to move and test his improved body. While the boy was running with his other comrades, his father suddenly came to him and called Hua-Rin to him. The man's eyes filled with tears of joy. He was incredibly happy that his son had changed so much for the better and had finally grown up. While the group of students took a short break, Bi-Yang, Hua-Rin's father, ran up to him and started shaking his shoulders, praising his son. Hua-Rin felt a little awkward, because the other students might notice them. The father didn't care. He came to his son to ask him about how Hua-Rin felt about formally learning their family's martial arts instead of physical training. The boy honestly admitted that he had thought about it, and then his father happily answered him that in that case he would immediately find a worthy teacher for his son. After these words of his father, the boy also admitted that he already had in mind one person whom Hua-Rin would like to see as his mentor. Bi-Yang asked him about this candidate, but before the brunette could answer this question, Xiaolan suddenly appeared next to them. She joyfully threw herself at her brother with hugs, pleased to see him. The father, a little offended, noted out loud that his daughter was looking only at Hua-Rin and did not even pay any attention to her father. The girl ignored the insult and bragged to her father that her brother had picked out her outfit for her. Bi-Yan had nothing to say to this. Xiao Lian, meanwhile, asked her brother if he remembered that she loved him very much. Although Hua-Rin now had a different physique, he still couldn't protect his loved ones. He needed to at least reach the point where he had enough strength to protect himself. To do this, the guy needed to master martial arts, and he was absolutely sure in his choice of teacher for these purposes. After training, Hua-Rin came to the house of the dragon swordflower, Mo Bi-Yun. She asked him about the purpose of the clan leader's son's visit to such a shabby place. The guy greeted her as if she were an old friend and said that he had one request for her. Looking at the smiling guy, the girl thought that the rumors about his recovery were true after all. She had never talked to this pervert before, so she had no idea what he could want from her. The young man bowed respectfully to Bi-Yun and told her that he would like to learn her swordsmanship. The boy with a radiant smile asked her to accept him into the ranks of her students. The girl was extremely surprised by this sudden request. Of course, she had heard rumors that the gentleman had changed a lot a few months ago, but she had not thought that it was that much. Of course, now the brunette was a little different from before, but still this young man did not inspire confidence in her. The girl wondered if a person could really change so much in such a short period of time. Many people, despite a difficult upbringing, led an honest life, but young Master Yong spent years drowning in hatred. Bi-Yun, without a second's hesitation, told the guy that she refused to teach him, which completely discouraged Hua-Rin. The boy asked her to give him a clear reason for her refusal, and the girl told him that she was too busy investigating why the Tianzhong clan's secret arts had become stagnant. Deep down, she even felt a little sorry to refuse the ambitious guy, but the girl did not believe that a person could change so easily. Deep down, Hua-Rin was prepared for this outcome. He guessed that Bi-Yun must still think of him as pathetic. In the past, teacher Mo Bi-Yun rarely interacted with others. Even in the clan, few knew about her skill, although she did not try to hide it on purpose. He was aware of her skills because he lived in the future. Teacher Mo's martial arts depth far surpassed all others. Without giving up on his attempts to persuade the girl, Hua-Rin knelt down, which greatly surprised the girl, who immediately turned her attention to him again. How could the eldest son of the clan kneel down over such a trifle? Hua-Rin told her that it was no small matter to him, and that was why he was ready to kneel and beg Master Mo to change his mind. No one contributed more to the battle against the Dabi sect than Mo Bi-Yun in the past. For this, teacher Mo received the not very flattering title of Bloody Dragon Swordflower for a woman, but she continued to put all her efforts into restoring the Tianzhong clan. The girl fought until she died a cruel death. This woman had given her life for their clan. He couldn't let that happen again. He didn't want to lose her or the Tianzhong clan. Despite all her convictions, the red-haired girl couldn't help but notice that the young master's behavior was different from how she was used to seeing him. Had Hua-Rin really changed? After thinking about the young man's request for a few more moments, the girl made her final decision and said that she was ready to accept his request, but only on the condition that the guy beat her in sparring. He wanted to object, but the woman explained the rules to him. They had to fight until they touched each other. If his sword touched hers even once, then Hua-Rin would win, although she was sure that would never happen. She also said that she would not use her ki or the martial arts of the Tianzhong clan in the duel. Back in the past, Hua Rin trained as hard as he could, so he was ready to accept the challenge. The young man raised his head and enthusiastically agreed to the proposed battle. But before the guy had time to come to his senses, he had already been thrown to the ground with such force that the ground beneath him began to crack. He was knocked out before he could even touch a strand of her hair. Was the difference in their strength really that great? Noticing that the guy was lying on the ground and not moving, Bi-yun remarked that it seemed like she had won, so she got ready to leave, leaving Hua Rin alone. But it was not to be. Hua Rin immediately jumped up from his seat, grabbing a wooden sword for training, and rushed towards the master, shouting that they were not finished yet. The woman's instant reaction allowed her to react to the brunette's attack in time. One confident swing of the katana, and he was already confused and stopped. She hit him several more times with a blunt sword from different sides, including on the head, but he continued to stay on his feet and say that they still weren't finished fighting. When Bi-yun noticed that the brunette had finally run out of strength and was sitting on the ground with his nose hanging, she sheathed her katana. The girl gave the boy credit and said that his efforts were commendable, but he lost. But the boy couldn't let go of his target so easily. Suddenly, the old man's furious energy took over again, and Hua Rin rose to his feet, clutching his sword in his hand and giving off a sense of danger with his whole appearance. Bi-yun was shocked that the young master suddenly had a red aura. This was definitely not Tianzhong's martial art. Not a little frightened by the fact that Junior Yan had lost his composure, the master tried to reach out to him so that the boy would finally come to his senses. But he seemed not to hear her at all, so he immediately attacked the girl, but she managed to repel his attack. But the young man was too fast, and so after the next dash, he managed to pin the teacher to the wall. Bi-yun didn't want to harm Hua Rin until the very end, but suddenly her situation became too dangerous. She had no choice but to confront him, so the girl reached for her katana, but did not have time to draw her floating sword of the Dragon Emperor Form 1 from its sheath. With one sharp movement, the brunette thrust his training sword into the wall right next to the teacher. The guy finally came to his senses. Breathing heavily, he said contentedly that he had touched the woman and therefore could be considered the winner. And unable to withstand such a load on his body any longer, the brunette fell to the ground without strength, dropping his sword, almost losing consciousness. Bi-yun turned around and discovered that the guy had not just pinned her to the wall, but had destroyed a whole huge part of the structure. No wonder he was now exhausted. Just what was that, and what had gotten into the gentleman? After that incident, Hua Rin finally began training with Teacher Mo. In a relatively short time, the young man had already become quite skilled in handling his sword. They were now also training. The woman stood to the side and thought, looking at her student, was the master really always so talented? He learned the forms of the Emperor Soaring Dragon Sword and the Azure Bamboo Sword in just a few days, which couldn't help but amaze her. After finishing practicing the skills that Master Mo had given him that day, he approached her and asked what she thought about his training. Bi-yun replied that he had not yet discovered their secrets, but he had no problem using both sword techniques. Considering the time he had been trained, it could be said that the master was quite good. The guy modestly scratched the back of his head and said that Bi-yun had praised him too much. It was sometimes difficult for the girl to talk to the young master, since she was still haunted by the secret of that red aura that appeared on the brunette during their very first fight. She noted out loud that Hua Rin was learning martial arts at an incredible speed. She couldn't believe that he was bedridden due to illness just recently. It was just unbelievable. Bi-yun wanted to start a conversation again about the red key that she saw on him, but the guy wearily interrupted her and said that he had already explained everything about it to her. Hua Rin said that he had been hit so many times by her that he did not remember anything. As proof, he pointed to the bump on his head left by the woman. He noted with irony that only the Dragon Sword Flower could treat the eldest son of their clan so harshly. The girl realized that this conversation was pointless, so she told him that since he refused to tell her the truth, she would not interfere in his affairs anymore. However, Master Mo still had the responsibility as someone who served Tianzhong, therefore she was going to continue to monitor every moment of his life. After such decisive words, Hua Rin even became a little scared. That same night, the boy sat at the table in his room. He thought about how he had come to a conclusion after using the Soaring Dragon Emperor Sword and the Azure Bamboo Sword. After training with Master Mo, he realized that the clan's martial art was inferior. However, this was inevitable, since it originally belonged to the demonic sects. Long ago, the ancestor of the Tianzhong clan was a wandering martial artist seeking justice in Henan. He received 2 demonic arts from the master of the hidden saint cult, which was neither an orthodox nor a demonic sect. Despite training in the demonic arts, the forefather, in an effort to maintain his path of justice, reinterpreted the 2 demonic arts for a long time. He eventually transformed them into the soaring dragon emperor sword and the azure bamboo sword. Although their strength had been greatly reduced in the process, it was still more than enough to create the greatest swordsman in all of Henan. But this was not the end of the matter. The use of demonic martial arts with orthodox cultivation techniques inevitably led to them becoming incomplete. Although he was able to reach the top, it was almost impossible to reach the highest point. The progenitor kept the origin of martial arts a secret. But now, centuries later, the truth has finally emerged. This is exactly what was supposed to lead to the death of their clan after some time. Hua Rin slammed his fists on the table. He had the opportunity to correct this incomplete martial art. Only he who had experienced the future could do it. The next day, Hua Rin was drinking tea with his parents in the garden. The boy told his father that he planned to visit the Jagal clan. The father did not expect his son to be so suddenly interested in it, so he asked him if he had any business there. Hua Rin said that he had regained his health by studying martial arts, so he thought it would be nice to visit and greet the Jagal clan, as someone who had married one of them before he was born. The head of the clan agreed that time really flies. The Jagal clan, and they decided to become related by agreement made even before the birth of their son. Hua Rin recalled that the daughter of the Jagal clan was named Jagal Yunggyeon. His father then told him that he was friends with Jagal Yugyeol, the head of the neighboring clan, so he was sure that they would be happy to see Hua Rin. With a meaningful smile, Biyan also added that he heard that the daughter of the Jagal clan was an incredible beauty. He asked the guy when he was going to come to them. The wife hurried to tell her husband that Hua Rin, although he had recovered, had to postpone the trip, since not much time had passed since his recovery. Biyang replied with a grin that Hua Rin was already an adult, and making friends while traveling was something he definitely had to experience. He was about the same age as his son when he met Yu Gyeol. The woman said that she understood that this was his desire, but the young man should have paid more attention to his safety, because this journey was supposed to be long. It would probably take him more than a month, so he needed a reliable bodyguard. That's what Hua Rin came to Master Mo for that very day. As soon as he came to her, 2 tall and very strong guys came up to him and immediately began to examine and touch his body. One of them said that Hua Rin's legs were not big, but quite flexible. The second one asked if it was true that the young master had studied martial arts, since he really looked different. The brunette realized that these guys must have been the 2 rising ghosts his parents had told him about. He was glad to meet them. The boys were also happy about this. They told the master not to worry, as they and the dragon sword flower were going to do their best to protect him on the journey. The second one suddenly said that he thought the young master's body was capable of growing even more. These strong youths were Jong-wook and Nam-wook. They were called rising ghosts. They looked muscular, but were skilled enough with the sword to be called ghost blades. Apparently his father had chosen his bodyguards carefully. Hua Rin had told them that he would show them the way to travel, so he would be happy if they followed him without question. Young-wook smiled at him and said that of course they would do as he said. After this, they took some time to equip their horses and prepare for the journey. Then they were ready to leave. Hua Rin's little sister cried. She didn't want her brother to leave for so long. The guy patted Xiaolan on the head and apologized for leaving. He promised that when he returned, they would go wherever she wanted at the main festival. He smiled radiantly and swore this to the younger one. Hua Rin told his younger brother that while he was gone, he was leaving Xiaolan and the family to him. Hua Rin was counting on Qijun. For some reason, at that very moment, looking up at his brother, the boy thought that his brother had always been so tall. Qijun saluted him and told his brother not to worry about it. He promised that he would protect their family with his own life. Hua Rin bowed to his family for the last time and said that in that case, after saying goodbye to everyone, he would set off on his journey. He and his companions saddled their horses and slowly set out on their long journey. But suddenly Hua Rin heard someone shouting at them to wait. It was Yunhua's voice. An analogy with a moment from his past life when he was leaving his home in a carriage and the girl ran after him, immediately popped into his head. Both then and now the girl asked the guy to let her go with him. Hua Rin's companions told him that he should have refused, as such a path was too dangerous for a young servant girl. The young man himself understood this, so he asked them to wait a minute and got off his horse to Yunhua. Suddenly he came up to her and hugged her tightly, which surprised the girl very much. Huarin told her that Yunhua always wanted to be by his side, and he was eternally grateful to her for her presence. However, he acknowledged that the path he was about to take could be very long and dangerous. He would not be able to protect her if she joined him now. He did not want to risk her life. He didn't want to put the girl in danger because she was his beloved family. These words struck the girl to the depths of her soul. Huarin smiled at her kindly and asked her to wait for his return with her father, mother, Kijun, and Xiaolan. Tears flowed from the girl's eyes. She happily told him that she had agreed to this. And after this conversation, the young man, together with his companions, was able to set off on his journey, leaving his home behind. He knew that when he returned to Tianzhong, many things would be different at that time, but he would protect his family and prevent the clan from falling. And all this had to start with the completion of their martial art. Having gone a little further from home, the travelers were finally able to hit the horses and speed them up. Now they were not riding calmly, but were rushing into the distance at full speed. Hua Rin should have apologized to his father, because the trip to the Jaigul clan was only a pretext. The Jaigul clan was simply located near Mount Wudang, which the young man was planning to reach. The secret to perfecting their clan's martial arts was on that mountain, so the young man was determined to find out the truth. Therefore, first of all, his detachment was heading not to a friendly clan, but to Wudang. At some point, without knowing where he was or what time it was, Hua Rin woke up lying in the clearest water. The place he found himself in was quite strange. He was standing ankle-deep in water, and everything around was covered with water. He could not see any land on the horizon. The guy decided to take a walk and look around when he noticed that some old board floated up to him and hit his leg. He took it in his hands to understand what it was and to read what was written on it. And written on it was the name of his clan. The world around immediately began to change, and the purest blue sky turned blood red. With a sinking heart, the boy noticed that he was standing in front of his home, engulfed in merciless tongues of flame. The water level began to rise, but the young man ran headlong towards the burning houses that belonged to his clan, not believing that this was happening. Suddenly the fire took the form of the old man, who was now Hua Rin's worst nightmare. He screamed and called the boy a fool. The old man cried out that after he had taken advantage of the greatest opportunity, which was contrary to the heavens themselves, he wasted his time on some childish games. The guy couldn't understand what was happening, why he was again experiencing the same emotions as in his past life, and where this evil old man came from, who was shouting that nothing could be changed. Suddenly the fog around him began to clear, and Hua Rin saw Master Mo standing in front of him. She was attacking him with a sword, and asked him what he was thinking during their sparring. Because he was stuck in his thoughts for a long time, the young man missed the woman's attack, and she knocked the weapon out of his hands with one confident movement. And then she twisted the sword and put it to the brunette's throat, depriving him of the opportunity to rush for his weapon. With a trembling voice he said that he had to give up this time. Bi Yun said that she felt like the young master couldn't concentrate on anything. Was he feeling unwell again? Hua Rin replied a little sadly that this was not the case, and that the reason for his slowness was different. He admitted thoughtfully that his sleep had been disturbed for the last few days, which was why he felt disorganized and exhausted. The other two young men invited him to train with them if he was not feeling well. The exercises they did were called the reverse lift flow and the additional pull flow. They were the best for increasing strength. You had to engage your lateral muscles and make sure your stance and elbows were at the right angle. The guy, looking at their efforts, realized that such training was not quite for him, at least for now, so he refused and said that he might join next time. Moreover, Hua Rin wanted to tell them something about their trip. Having remounted his horses and continued on his way, Hua Rin told his companions that before they went to the Jaigul clan, he wanted to look at the mountain of the 7 sages. He read a book written by a famous herbalist. It said that there was a place on the mountain where 100-year-old ginseng could be found, and there was also monkey wine, which was not easy to find in the rest of Jianghu. The bodyguards were attracted by the fact that on the mountain they could try delicious monkey wine. Hua Rin heard that the two loved alcohol so much that people called them two rising drunken ghosts. The boys ignored this fact, but nevertheless, they were willing to accompany the young man to the mountain. Only Master Mo was dissatisfied with something. She said that the 7 Sages mountain was located in a region near demonic sects. Orthodox sects like the Tianzhong clan could cause trouble. but Hua Rin said with a sly grin that the locals would have no way of knowing that they were from Tianzhong, and if they were caught, they could say that they belonged to another clan. Bi-yun didn't understand how the clan leader's son could talk about such a disrespectful act. The guy was the pride of the clan. He couldn't deceive people so brazenly. Not wanting to argue with the woman, he said that it was not that important. If they were to face opponents who asked him where he was from, he was ready to say without hesitation that he was also from a demonic sect. Survival was more important than pride. One of the Rising Winds said to Teacher Mo that why should they, as an orthodox sect, be afraid of the demonic sects? He thought that they should have done as the young master said. But their words did not convince the woman, since she was sure that they agreed with the gentleman only to get drunk on monkey wine. Hua Rin irritably explained to her that he only wanted to bring some ginseng to his clan for his beloved parents. He had caused them so much trouble that he wanted to do something nice. In the end, she finally agreed to the young man's persuasion. The guy thanked his companions for their consent and suggested that they stop at the nearest tavern. Of course, Hua Rin lied to them about the Seven Sages Mountain. There was no ginseng or monkey wine on the mountain, but there was something else, 100 times more valuable. He wanted to find the demonic flower of the poisonous stone there. There was a kind of tomb where all the poisonous insects were collected when it was time for them to die. Over the centuries, all the poison collected in a puddle and solidified, forming a poison crystal. Sometimes a seed would fall on such crystals and flowers would sprout from it. The seed then blossomed on the crystal, soaking in its poison and demonic energy. This was the so-called poison stone flower. It was supposed to be on the mountain of the Seven Sages, and the guy was determined to pick it. But there was one problem. Arriving at a nearby inn, Hua Rin heard rumors that martial artists from demonic sects had gathered near the Seven Sages Mountain. It was said that there was a medicine there that was useful for those who belonged to demonic sects. It was called the demonic flower of poison stone, and that was what the masters intended to find. This complicated Hua Rin's plan considerably. When did they manage to find out about all this? Master Mo and Hua Rin sat down at a table to have a drink, and then she told him that the boy might have heard that the demonic masters were heading to the Seven Sages Mountain because of that flower. So she thought that going there now was a bad idea. Hua Rin was sad to admit it, but Master Mo was right. The demon sect masters were definitely going to fight over him. However, the son of the Tianzhong clan leader had no need to interfere between them. He only needed to defeat Guo Chok, the heir of the Hubei snake dragon sect. He would definitely be the last one to receive the poison stone. He heard that in half a year, Guo Chok had reached the peak of the first level. The demon flower would definitely be the ingredient that would decide Hua Rin's fate. After all, Tianzhong's martial arts were also demonic arts. The boy informed Bi-yun that nothing had changed, and he was still planning to go to the Seven Sages Mountain. The girl stood up from her seat and irritably told him that the masters of the demonic sects themselves were gathering there now. Didn't he understand how dangerous it was? But the young man told her that this was one of the paths to the Jagal clan. If something went wrong, the Jagal clan could stand up for them, so it would be a good idea to meet them there. Master Mo eventually agreed with the brunette, but said that if they met a martial artist there that they couldn't handle, then they should have avoided the fight. Hua Rin then reminded her that there were also 2 rising ghost blades on their side. And then turning towards them, Hua Rin and Mo noticed that they were already very drunk, so they realized that they couldn't really count on the guys. However, the brunette told the girl not to worry. He promised that they would not approach places where dangerous masters could be. Before setting off on their journey to the mountain, Hua Rin suggested that they stop for one day in the small town they had come to. The surroundings of the Mountain of the Seven Sages were like a pandemonium gallery, although he was too weak to go to such a dangerous place. But everyone knows that the one who laughs last always wins. Not long before, Hua Rin asked Teacher Mo to investigate the inns, bars, and snake dragon sects, and find places where there were few customers but many horses. Go Chok was the young leader of the snake dragon sect. He was probably going to fight his people. In order for them to move quickly, they would need many horses, so they needed a stable. Also, even if Go Chok gets the poison stone flower, he won't be able to use it right away. He'll need to visit the inn before transporting the flower to a safer place. And most likely, it would be an inn belonging to the snake dragon sect. If Hua Rin could find Go Chok first, he would be able to obtain the demon flower. Therefore, Hua Rin and his companions stayed at an inn that met all the above criteria. If they stayed here, Gochok would definitely come to them himself, and then all that was left was to steal the poisonous stone flower from him. Acting on these motives, Hua Rin and his team stopped at a suitable inn. Hua Rin didn't make a mistake with his choice of hotel. In the evening, he stood on the balcony of his room with two rising ghosts. From the balcony, they noticed Gochok, the young head of the snake dragon below. The rising ghosts were astonished to find this gentleman here, and Hua Rin was no less surprised than they were. According to his calculations, Gochok should be at the Seven Sages Mountain right now. Then why was he here? Wasn't he participating in the battle? While Hua Rin was watching Gochok, he noticed that one of his assistants ran up to him. They started whispering about something, and the head of the clan looked very unhappy. Hua Rin noted with disappointment that being so upset, he certainly could not hear what they were talking about. Apparently the servants brought some very bad news to Gochok, since he started shouting at them and became furious at what he heard. Suddenly, Hua Rin heard that the chief had ordered the sword and the 8 serpent dragon exterminators to be summoned immediately. They were going to chase someone. Zhong Wook, one of the rising ghosts, told Hua Rin that the sword and the 8 snake dragon slayers were the 2 strongest sects of the snake dragons, and the leader was so excited that he couldn't even find words. Hua Rin knew that if something urgent happened, he would no longer have a chance to get the flower without endangering his life. So he told young Wook to get the team together. He planned to follow Gochok. Hearing this, Bi Yun flared up. Hua Rin really wanted to pursue the demonic sects. It was too dangerous. She could not understand why the young master was trying to get himself into more and more dangerous situations. He told her that great changes were coming to the Jianghu soon. To survive in this chaos, they had to become stronger. The guy kept his composure and tried to calm the girl down too. But she shouted at him and said that the Jianghu were at peace, and they were not so weak as to rely on some herb to maintain that peace. Hua Rin's face suddenly became completely gloomy. He told the master that she was wrong, they were very weak. He asked her if the girl had no desire for power. He was sure she did. How could it not be interesting to a martial artist? Hua Rin admitted that they were simply so weak that they could not participate in the fight. He had a dream. He was going to get the demon flower of the poison stone to become stronger and protect his family and their clan from any external threats. Therefore, if Teacher Mo truly believed in him, the heir of the clan, then she had to follow his commands. The girl was in complete shock. Before, the gentleman could barely take care of his own body, but now he took on so many duties and responsibilities. Previously, she did not think of him as an adult, but apparently the time had come to change her attitude towards the young master. The 2 rising ghosts were in a more cheerful mood. They were amused that the heir of the clan could make such a bold promise, but they respected him. They, Zhong Wook and Nam Wook, bowed to the brunette and said that they were ready to follow the orders of the young head of the clan. Master Mo gave in and also bowed before him, promising to follow his will as well. But she asked the boy to remember that Jianghu was not a place to be taken lightly. Since all his companions finally agreed with his instructions, the lad said that they could now set out on their journey. He thought that Master Mo might not worry. In all of Jianghu, no one knew this better than him because he had experienced it himself. After some time, they reached the GRA and, hiding behind the stone ledges, watched the members of the sect of the Snake Dragon. Hua Rin didn't expect that there would be so many demon sect slens here. The brunette and his team were on the mountain a little higher than the rest of the people and were watching them from above. He told his comrades that it seemed that Gochok and the sect members were forming an unstoppable network. If so, then wasn't it time for them to move out as well? Asked the head of the young Wook. Hua Rin told him no. The main force was slow, so the brunette was sure that they intended to take action as soon as they spotted suspicious people or a messenger with a miraculous medicine. After some time, Hua Rin's team noticed that there was a commotion among the cult members, which meant that they had found the flower. So the boy suggested that they go down to the river and wait there. He was asked why by the river. The young man explained that a person running away would always prefer to go to the water rather than to the forest. After a while, the screams of the sect members stopped. Then the dark-haired man told his companions to continue to try to remain as secretive as possible. A wounded man was floating down the river and calling for help. And then suddenly the entire area above the water was covered in a dark aura, which excited and frightened Hua Rin's team. This wounded man instantly transformed into a tall, dark-haired warrior, shrouded in a veil of black magic. Master Mo asked if she understood correctly that what they just saw was a detailing demonic bloodlion. Hua Rin noticed that this man's aura was ominous, Were he and Master Mo acquainted? Biyun didn't know him personally, but this man was very famous. Jung Wook said that if Hua Rin were to choose 100 demonic martial arts experts, this man would definitely be among them. They continued to watch him from the bushes, and the brunette noticed that apparently the man was not in the best condition. Suddenly, the dark-haired man noticed that in his hand the man was clutching nothing less than a demonic flower of poisonous stone. This means that the flower was not with the members of the Gochok cult, but with this mysterious master. At that moment, tall columns of splashes began to appear in the water around that demonic master. He was surrounded by members of the Gochok cult, with him at the head. The man told his opponent that the brunette had come here by killing the most elite member of his sect. He expected nothing less from the flying demonic blood lion. Laughing, the blood lion said that he didn't expect to be cornered by weaklings like them. If it weren't for those traitors from the Tang clan, the man would have easily torn the Gochok clan to pieces. Then Gochok's hand reached towards his kimono, and he was about to take something out from his bosom. He showed the bloody lion some object and asked if he recognized what it was. The man stepped back excitedly. He said that it was a shower of 1,000 needles, a metal oblong box in appearance. Gochok admitted that he spent a fortune to get this item. He told the bloody lion not to think of deceiving his clan, since his warriors had many such weapons. Then the demonic master became furious and shouted that Gochok really believed that he would fall before such a weak weapon, in his opinion. At that moment, Gochok ordered his men to start fire, and they used the weapons they had in their hands. Sparks flew from everywhere. The blood lion watched the speed with which these frightening charges of energy rushed towards him, but he was not afraid. He used his strong magic and created an energy wall around himself, which easily changed the direction of the charges and pushed them away from him. Hua Rin, looking at all this, was very doubtful about how this could even be. Everything around was filled with a bright purple light. Shells flew into the water, creating huge waves and splashes, and in general the world around began to look like complete chaos. The man who cast the spell shouted that their demon clan was nothing compared to him, and Gochok did not understand where he got so much ki from. Then the head of the clan ordered the second detachment of his army to put their stocks of weapons to use. But the great demonic master was able to push away each of the subsequent projectiles. But very quickly the blood lion ran out of strength, and then some projectiles hit his body and he fell into the water, and his magic dissipated into the air. Gochok turned to the 8th sword of the snake dragon and the blades of the snake dragon, and ordered to find the blood lion and finally kill it, and take the miraculous medicine. All of them rushed at once towards the master, who lay powerlessly in the river water. Barely able to stand on his feet, standing on one knee, the blood lion said in a low voice that Gochoku would never find the flower he was looking for. Even after receiving injuries, the man did not give up. He confidently stood up on his feet and shouted to the soldiers that they should come closer. He was going to take them all to hell with him. The man used his magic for self-defense and destroyed one by one the opponents who got too close to him. Hua Rin and his companions felt disgusted at the terrible and cruel picture that appeared before them. Master Mo thought that she had never seen such a bloodthirsty and terrible battle. She also thought that the young master must have been new to Jianghu, yet he managed to look at all this with such calmness and composure. After some time, when the magic had dissipated and the blood lion no longer had the life force to resist them, the clan members informed the head that they had destroyed and taken the life of their enemy. But it was too early to relax. Gochok ordered his men to search this master for the demonic flower. As it turned out, to the great surprise of the chief, the flower was not on the man. Then he ordered to search the master again, because he saw that he had the flower. They were close enough during the chase that he could not have hidden it anywhere. While the clan was busy searching for the flower, Hua Rin suddenly raised his companions and ordered them to follow him through the forest. Hua Rin heard the news that the flying demonic blood lion didn't have a miracle cure, but the guy guessed where it might be. He said that a demonic flying lion must have sent the flower downstream. Hua Rin reminded them of how the blood lion created a water barrier. It wasn't the best defense mechanism. It could block hidden weapons, but it blocked the view of enemies. The young man assumed that the lion should have been able to evade the attacks with Qinggong, but instead, he quietly released the miraculous medicine. In that case, the lion would have to go along the river to find him after the battle. As they ran down the river, suddenly a small explosion was heard behind them. Hearing this, Hua Rin told his companions that they needed to hurry up. Surely soon the clan members would also figure out where the medicine might be. Hua Rin's guesses turned out to be correct, and they soon reached the coveted demonic flower. The guy carefully took it in his hands. After this, he hid the flower under his kimono and took out from under his clothes the poison that he had bought in advance. He dropped some poison on an ordinary flower that looked like a demonic one to create a good fake. The flower, which had previously been snow white, instantly turned purple. Teacher Mo pointed out that it was not appropriate for an orthodox martial artist to carry poison with him. The boy told her that poison was a very useful tool. Now that he had applied the poison to the flower, the clan members might think that they had found their target, but they would be deceived. He knew it couldn't fool them for long, but it should be enough time for their team to escape. Young Wook said that the other guys fought for this thing with their lives, and he didn't expect that they would get it, even though all they did was watch others. Hua Rin smiled at him and said that they were just lucky. At that very moment, as if out of nowhere, the bloody lion appeared again, and with one sharp movement he took the box with the flower from Hua Rin. The entire company was shocked because they did not expect at all that the blood lion could survive the fight with the clan. The man looking at the box declared in a victorious, angry voice that the demonic flower now belonged to him. Hua Rin froze in place. He couldn't believe that trouble had come from where he hadn't expected it at all. The next moment, the guy was struck by a powerful blow from the blood dragon. She lost her balance and flew to the side. Moreover, Hua Rin flew so far that the blood dragon was only a few meters away from him. The young master's team took out their weapons and prepared to engage in battle, to which the bloody lion said that they, like rats, showed greed without limit. He tried to take enough time to fully absorb its energy. Now that he had used the innate internal ki energy, he was going to personally kill everyone present, tearing them to shreds. And after that he was going to use the spilled blood to fill the missing amount of chi in him. This was the first time Master Mo had entered into a real fight with an opponent who possessed such overwhelming power. She shuddered at the memory of what this man had done to the Gochoka clan. At this rate, she really could have paid with her life. Nam Wook suddenly spoke and said that since he was born, he had never looked at his sleeping place with peace and serenity. As a result, the title he received as a reward for his hard work was a ghost blade. The two rising ghosts, Jong Wook and Nam Wook, were ready to join the battle and protect not only the young master, but also Master Mo. From that moment on, they were warriors of the Tianzhong clan who were not afraid to enter the battle and stop the occultist. The woman tried to reach out to them and explain that their opponent was too strong, but they did not listen to her. Nam Wook told her that it was their duty that they had to fulfill. Moreover, the bloody maiden had just tasted poison when he tasted the flower. Nam Wook reminded her that the box contained not a real flower, but a dangerous fake. The warrior was sure that the lion, seriously wounded, having used all of his innate internal chi energy, and having also tasted poison, was within his grasp. If they could withstand his onslaught, they had every chance of winning, so the boys fearlessly moved towards the enemy. Nam Wook went on the attack first, with Jong Wook right behind him. The enraged blood lion chuckled and said that it was commendable that they did not run away. Suddenly, with the help of magic, the lion's arms became insanely long and seemed to be hot. He simultaneously extended both arms to attack both guys at once. The boys managed to panic, but at that moment a bright flash of light burst out between them from somewhere in the bushes. It was the sword of the soaring dragon emperor, lightning falling from the heights of the sky. It turned out that it was Teacher Mo who entered the battle and with her magical blow threw the master aside. He managed to stay on his feet, but the next moment he felt pain and weakness throughout his body. The poison was beginning to affect him. The man thought that he was being attacked by an old monster of the Tang clan, that is, an old man with combat skills. But in the next moment, he realized everything and realized that if it had been the poison of the Tang clan, then everything inside him would have melted long ago, and he would have been destroyed. In that case, it turned out that he was deceived by the company with which he was now fighting. He shouted at them for daring to pull such a prank on an elder, for which he promised to break their bones. Mo noticed that just as the two ascending ghosts said, the flying blood demon lion had reached its limit. They should have held out a little longer, just a little bit, and then he himself would have died due to the effects of the poison. Quite unexpectedly for them, the man burst into loud laughter. And then suddenly he became very scared. He had not died at the hands of the old monster of the Tang clan, nor at the swords of the members of the Snake Dragon clan, but at the same time he could die at the hands of these midges whose names he did not even know. The desperate man screamed into the air, not expecting an answer, asking if such a thing was possible. The guy he attacked first must have had the elixir. Without losing hope of salvation, the lion was going to take the plant from Hua Rin, and if he had already managed to drink it, the man would squeeze all the juices out of the guy. The demon master rushed forward and pounced on Hua Rin's team, trying to disarm them, but Bi Yun managed to resist his attack and strike back. After this, the man made his lightning strike, and then the girl was at a loss. He punched the ascending ghost with his fist charged with energy, and then he swung at Master Mo, and then she realized that she couldn't dodge it. And at that very moment, when the team's defense was already on the edge, an enraged Hua Rin appeared out of nowhere. The blade of his sword flashed through the air. Before returning to the fight, when the lion first threw Hua Rin back, he flew into the bushes and hit his back against a tree, breaking its trunk. The guy didn't expect at all that the flying demonic blood lion could target him with true ki. Realizing that the battle was continuing and that he couldn't lie here helplessly, Kavaran decided that it was time to get up. The only difficulty was that his body did not move. In the world of Murim, there was no one who knew what was happening better than the boy. And so thinking that he knew everything, Hua Rin became too arrogant and self-confident, for which he now paid. Suddenly, Hua Rin felt a cross-shaped wound form on his forehead, and blood started flowing. The old man's voice, which still did not let go of Hua Rin, screamed inside him to give in and finally give his body to him. He felt this warrior sitting inside him. The aura of the old man he saw before the repression was consuming him from within. Hua Rin borrowed his aura during his duel with Master Mo, so if he can use it now, he will definitely be able to defeat the flying blood lion. He felt this aura that was trying to take control of his body, but he could not give in to it. If he closed his eyes, that aura could control him again, but this time it was Hua Rin who was going to take control of it. At the same time, he tried to force himself to wake up and no longer rely on some unknown turbidity. The old man's voice inside grew louder and louder, but the boy ordered him to shut up. He confidently announced that it was his body and only he was its owner. The guy was suddenly seized by a titanic force. Hua Rin told the old man that he was now only an echo of his past, an insignificant ghost, and next time he would definitely protect his loved ones. Filled with energy, Hua Rin stood firmly on his feet and prepared to enter the battle. He rushed to the aid of his comrades with lightning speed. With his strong and sharp blow, Hua Rin deprived the bloodline of his arm, thereby catching him off guard. Hua Rin, meanwhile, was already prepared for the next blow. The guy was surrounded by a red, ominous, and dangerous aura. Even the bloodline couldn't understand how such a young guy could have such a strange aura. Master Mo also noticed it, and thought that it was the same energy that had manifested during the battle with her. Jung Wook and Nam Wook, trying to recover from the attacks of the blood lion, told the young man that he was just in time. Some time had passed since the flying demonic blood lion was poisoned, and from the very beginning, it had also been continuously using true origin ki, so Hua Rin's team, who were in full combat readiness, had every chance of winning. They didn't even have to put in much effort. The man would soon die himself. Suddenly the guy became very serious and said that he was ready to give his first decree. He looked around at all those present and said that they all had to be saved, even the bloody lion. The man raised his head towards him and said that he had experienced so much and witnessed the strangest things in the world of Murim, but he had never seen anything like this. The irritated master said that there was absolutely no sense in this case. The blood lion had no intention of taking advantage of Hua Rin's mercy and permission to save himself. The demon master was ready to fight to the last. He was going to give up the thought of returning alive. He said that although he didn't know how Hua Rin used his power, he asked him to fight with all his might. The man did not want to run away and dishonor his honor. He was ready to fight to the last. The entire team took a defensive stance, realizing that the flying demonic blood lion did not want to disperse peacefully. Then they gripped their weapons tightly in their hands and rushed into battle to deal with their enemy once and for all. At the same time, Go Chok and his warriors finally realized what the demonic lion had done to the flower. They were going downstream, and Go Chok was thinking that he had not expected that this damned old man would go so far as to use the true origin key. When they reached the supposed location of the flower, they noticed that the river in this tributary had dried up completely and quite recently. The young master was trying to understand what had happened at this place, when one of the servants suddenly shouted to him that he had found something. As it turned out, the guy came across the body of a defeated blood lion, which was no longer breathing. But the man was more interested in the flower than in the enemy, so he asked his warrior about it. The guy hesitated, unable to formulate his thoughts due to nerves. Then Gochok shouted at him and informed him that if the warrior dared to tell him that the flower was not found on the man, he would immediately deprive the warrior of his head. The frightened boy knelt down and told the chief in a trembling voice that he didn't have a flower. Then the angry leader swung his sword at the poor warrior, wanting to vent his anger, pain, and disappointment on him. But he came to his senses in time and pulled himself together, lowering his weapon. He was breathing heavily and could not come to his senses from the rage that had taken over his entire body, right down to his bones. He wanted to know who was the man who fought the demonic lion after him and stole the flower that was supposed to belong to Gochoku. The person who received the elixir instead of him faced terrible revenge, and Gochok would never be able to forgive anyone for such a thing. The team raced on horses at lightning speed away from the battlefield in order to quickly hide and not run into new enemies. Jong-wook, although he was covered in wounds like his companions, was smiling. He said that he couldn't even believe that they actually defeated the flying demonic blood lion. Then Teacher Mo reminded him how difficult their battle had been. If the man had held out even a little longer, they would have met their end on this mountain. Jong-wook admitted that they were indeed a hair's breadth away from fatal defeat, but it was not for nothing that they said that the strongest survive. After all, the flying demon blood lion was just one of the many warriors in Jianghu, and he knew it very well. Then why didn't he give up everything and join the fight? Suddenly they were interrupted by the young gentleman starting to cough very painfully. He was bleeding. A worried Biyun asked the guy how he was feeling, but even from his appearance it was clear that Huarin felt disgusting. He told Master Mo that she was right. The Jianghu world was indeed not that simple. Who would have thought that they would have to fight a flying demonic blood lion? The guy was sad and painful to admit to himself that one of them could have lost their lives in this battle. But he promised to protect his family and clan from any threat, so getting this flower was simply necessary for him. He took it out from his bosom to make sure he had not lost his treasure. This was indeed an important step he had taken to make the clan's defense stronger. No one told him it would be easy, and that day Huarin was finally convinced of it. Dangerous situations like today's were unavoidable. He told his companions that not only he, but they too would have to become stronger in the near future to protect their clan from enemies. Jong-wook asked if that was possible. Interrupting the young master's speech, Master Mo asked him if he wanted to tell them anything about himself. She wanted to finally find out what this sinister aura was about him. Now he couldn't get away with it and say that he didn't remember anything. Jong-wook supported the girl and agreed that the aura that Huarin emitted was somehow strange. This aura was not like the strength of the Tianzhong clan, which was strange. It was closer to the strength of the flying demonic blood lion, very ominous. Biyun asked the brunette if he had secretly mastered some kind of demonic technique. He thought that in order to tell his companions the truth, he would have to tell them about his regression. But if he did that, the future might change for the worse. It was not yet time to tell them the whole truth. Huarin then refused to answer the woman's question, but promised that he would tell them everything later. This answer really outraged her because they were risking their lives, and the guy was still hiding something from them. But the young gentleman did not have the strength to argue with her about anything. He felt how his condition was getting worse and worse with every second. He smiled grimly and said that it was true. They had risked their lives for him, so when the time came, they would be the first to know the whole truth about him. After that, they rode in silence. Master Mo was dissatisfied with the master's words, but she understood that she could not do anything about it. When they reached the edge of the forest, the party stopped. Mo told the young master that his condition left much to be desired, so she suggested that they go to the Jiggle clan to get help. But the youth said that this was a bad option, since the Snake Dragon sect was still searching for them. If they went to the Jiggle clan now, it might turn into an inter-clan conflict. At first he wanted to go to Mount Wudang, as they had planned. He had heard that a healer lived there. It turned out that Biyun had also heard something about this healer from Mount Wudang, who was called Healer Hei. The next day on Mount Wudang, the weather was quite fine, and one frisky white cat was jumping on the ground from bush to bush. The cat was named Baek Sol, and his owner, a little boy, ran after him, trying to catch the pet. He warned the animal that the mountain was dangerous, as if the cat could understand him. But the cat did not listen and ran on, and the boy begged him to wait and stop. Suddenly Baek Sol decided to run into the bushes. But as soon as he ran up to them, someone started moving in the bushes, and a noise was heard, which scared the animal very much. During this time, the boy was able to catch up with it. The brown-haired man happily picked up his pet in his arms, happy that he had finally caught him. Now, having come closer to the bushes, the boy noticed some movement in them. He looked at this bush in fascination, waiting to see what would happen next. Suddenly, tired and frightened Huarin and his team emerged from the bush. The wounded Huarin, with tears in his eyes, was incredibly happy to finally see at least one living soul, a human, on this mountain. The team scared the boy terribly with their sudden appearance, as well as his cat, and he screamed very loudly from fear. After this, Huarin remembers little, because he must have lost consciousness from the pain, but he woke up not in the forest, but in some room, covered with a warm blanket, and in clean clothes. He jumped up very sharply on his bed. Apparently the guy had a nightmare about a bloody lion, and sweat appeared on his forehead. Realizing that the new stream of terrible events was only in his dream, he looked at himself and noticed that his hands and head were bandaged. He quickly realized that since his hands had healed, the boy had reported them to the elders, and now he and his team were in the tomb of that very healer. Just at that moment, that very boy came into his room. The child said that Huarin had serious injuries, so they brought him here. It was a small hospital that he and his grandfather ran. He entered the room and sat down next to the victim. The boy asked him to wait a minute while he prepared a decoction for him. Then, to finally make sure he was right, Huarin asked him if he understood correctly that the boy's grandfather was called He Donggun. The guy confirmed it. Then Huarin asked if he remembered correctly that the boy's name was He Chul Ryong. Chul Ryong confirmed this too. He asked the brunette how he knew their names. Huarin finally found what he came to Mount Wudang for, what he made up an excuse to his parents about going to the Jegal clan for. In fact, the guy had come all this way for this boy. The key to perfecting the inferior martial art of Tianzhong was kept here. Besides, on this mountain, the boy intended to find the strongest warrior he knew. In the future, Chil Ryong was to become the best warrior of all Jianghu, the sole ruler of the universe. Before Huarin returned to the past, the longest battle for the secret manuscript unfolded in the martial arts world. This battle of unprecedented scale involved not only the 5 great clans of the martial arts world, but also the forces of righteousness and darkness. The reason why the martial arts world was turned upside down by this manuscript is quite interesting. It established a new truth. In the human body, good and evil existed simultaneously. When these halves, that is, devotion and darkness, united, the warrior could manifest a power that surpassed human capabilities. This manuscript was the famous final revelation of Zhang Sanfeng, the founder of Wudang and an ascended saint. This manuscript was the canon of the mysterious heavenly Dao Taiji. In his past life, Chiol Ryong was a top-level master, although his family found him by accident while collecting medicinal herbs. With the help of that very manuscript, Chiol Ryong became the strongest in the world, the ruler of the universe. If Huarin could obtain that very canon of the mysterious heavenly Dao Taiji, then he would be able to solve the long-standing problem of his clan. Watching how a very small boy was rubbing the decoction for him, the brunette found it hard to believe that one day this child would become the strongest master of martial arts. To be honest, Huarin expected their meeting to be more dramatic than it was. While Chiel Ryong was busy working, a fly flew into the room and subsequently landed on his cheek. But with one sharp movement, without stopping what he was doing, the boy grabbed the fly with his hand so that it would not bother him. Huarin was amazed by such a lightning-fast reaction of the boy. This hand movement was similar to a technique learned during martial arts training. Huarin asked the boy how he knew this technique. Cheel Ryong replied that he studied martial arts with his grandfather. Just then, the famous healer He entered the room. He noticed with a smile that Huarin had finally woken up. Together with the healer, Huarin went out into the courtyard, where he was greeted by 2 rising ghosts and teacher Mo. They were also bandaged and taken care of. The whole team bowed to the healer, and they thanked him for curing them, and Brun also introduced himself to the man and said where they were from. The healer waved away the thanks, saying that this was his job. He was much more interested in Huarin's words that they were from the Tianzhong clan. He asked them how they ended up so far from home. Huarin put on his usual smile and quickly said that they came here to find wild ginseng. The healer said thoughtfully that they, of course, were involved with herbs here, but no one was looking for ginseng just like that. The old man narrowed his eyes suspiciously and asked why the young people needed ginseng. Huarin made up a story on the fly that his mother was very sick, and his parents always took care of him when he was unwell, and it was thanks to them that he was able to travel away from his clan. But one day he was informed that his mother had become very ill and was bedridden, and the only thing that could cure her was wild ginseng. And so when he was climbing Mount Wudang in search of ginseng, he slipped and fell, injuring himself very badly. Teacher Mo immediately caught the boy in a lie, since the lady was in good health when she saw her son off on his journey. Bi-yun tried to understand why the young master lied to these people. What would happen if he was caught in a lie? But strangely enough, this story worked and the healer believed in it, and even began to cry from how touching it was. The old man proudly said that Hua Rin could be considered a true example of filial piety. It was amazing how much care he had for his parents. Filled with energy, healer, he even ran to get ready to help the travelers collect ginseng. In fact, Teacher Mo was sure that Hua Rin was lying about searching for ginseng, but looking at how actively he was searching for herbs in the forest, she thought that perhaps his words were even true. Seeing that Bi-yun was not busy searching, he looked up at her and ordered her to help and not stand there like a pillar. He said that he needed to quickly find ginseng to take to his mother, but in fact he was not looking for herbs, but for that cherished canon. Frightened by how serious the young master looked, the entire team rushed to look for ginseng as he instructed. They stayed in the forest until evening, busy with hard work, but they still failed to find anything. When it was already getting dark, the healer told them that it was time to return home and finish for today. Everyone agreed with him, and dirty and tired headed back to the hospital. Kvarin, of course, did not expect to find the canon right away, but he was still upset that the first day of searching was not crowned with success. Apparently, even knowing the future, nothing could be obtained so easily. When they returned, the healer told Hua Rin that if they told him where they lived, he could simply send them ginseng to their home when he found it. The young man bowed and said that he would be immensely grateful to the man for his help. But despite this, he asked him to allow him to stay for a few more days to look for ginseng on his own, and the old man allowed it. The next day, Hua Rin sat in his room and meditated, learning to cope with the ominous aura that lurked within him. He thought about how he had checked the places Heidok-gon often went to yesterday, and if he continued searching there, he would definitely find a clue related to the manuscript. If he searched at random, he was afraid to even imagine how long it would take him. After finishing meditating, Hua Rin went out into the courtyard where he met healer He and wished him good morning. They sat down together on a bench in the yard, while the old man was also busy cultivating some medicinal herb. He asked Hua Rin if he was going to go to the mountains with the healer today to continue searching for ginseng. The young man told him that today he intended to go and look for ginseng on his own. They calmly looked at the forest adjacent to the hospital and listened to the wind rustling. Suddenly, Hua Rin asked the old man where his grandson had disappeared to. And before the man could answer, Cheol Ryong ran right in front of them, holding his pet in his arms. The boy was very scared for some reason and looked at his grandfather and Hua Rin with an anxious look. The healer asked his grandson what was the matter, why he looked so scared, as if he had met a tiger in the forest. The boy told him that in the morning he and Baek-sol went hunting, but some people tried to catch his cat, and so they had to run away. The old man told Hua Rin that sometimes when the warriors climbed Mount Wudang, they tried to catch Baek-sol, mistaking him for a magical spirit. Suddenly, while they were talking, those same warriors entered the courtyard of their hospital in an orderly row. The leader of the group was a teenage girl. She turned to Cheol Ryong and said that he was very playful for a child, and also asked if he was the owner of this cat. The girl asked him to sell her his cat, but Cheol Ryong irritably told her that Baek-sol was not for sale. This made the girl very angry. She wanted to know the reason for his refusal and said that she was ready to give a lot of money for this cat. But Cheol Ryong didn't want to hear about it. He wasn't ready to sell his pet for any amount of money. Then the elder and all of Hua Rin's team came forward to intercede for the child and his cat. The old man apologized and tried to politely explain to the lady that Baek-sol was like a family member to them, so they could not sell him to her. She arrogantly stated that anyone else in her place would have simply taken the cat away, but she was doing them a favor by offering to buy it. Seeing how the girl scolded both the old man and the boy and her subjects, Hua Rin could not help but notice how impudent and nasty she was. But it was sad to realize that her character was similar to Hua Rin's in her past life. The brunette decided to stand up for the healer's family, and turning to the lady, said that it was not good to ask for something that they did not want to sell. He wanted to approach the girl closer, but one of the warriors stopped him and asked if the guy even knew who was standing in front of him. Hua Rin was starting to get angry at this attitude. Who were they to threaten him? The warriors suddenly told him that they were people of the Jiggle family, and the young lady was the youngest daughter of the head of the family. This news shocked the guy. He didn't expect to meet them like this. In front of him stood the sister of his betrothed, Jaegil Jong-yeon, whose name was Jaegil Yohei. Now Hwa-rin was not surprised that even a simple bodyguard was bragging so much. The brunette bowed respectfully to her and said that it was a great honor for him to meet the daughter of the Jaegil family. One of her bouncers looked menacingly at Hwa-rin and asked what kind of person their interlocutor was. At this point, Young Wook's patience snapped. He stepped in front of the brunette and asked the man if he thought too highly of himself to be a bodyguard. They clashed violently. Jung Wook said that they were from Hanam and was about to say the name of the clan, but he didn't have time. Hwa-rin interrupted him. The boy said that they were just simple travelers who decided to visit Mount Wudong. Yo, he snorted disdainfully and said, hiding behind her fan, that she did not want to talk to a man who hid his origin. After that, she turned to Cheol-ryong again and said that she was giving him a choice. He could either sell her his cat, or she could take it from the boy by force. Of course, he didn't agree with any of these options. Suddenly he noticed Hwa-rin standing nearby and waving at him. The brunette explained to him with gestures that he wanted to help. To do this, the boy needed to release the cat on his signal, while Hwa-rin would distract the guards. The boy nodded vigorously in agreement, pressing the cat closer to himself. When the girl wanted to snatch the cat from Cheol-ryong's hands, Hwa-rin suddenly spoke up and told the young lady that there was a third option. An angry Yo, he turned to him and asked what that third option was. And right at that moment, Cheol-ryong threw his kitten into the air. Neither the girl nor her warriors, nor even Baek-sol himself, expected that the pet would now be in the air. None of them had time to react, and the cat ran with quick, dexterous jumps into the depths of the forest, jumping over a low fence. Yohei turned to Hwa-rin and blamed him for allowing all of this to happen. Hwa-rin said with a grin that since the cat ran away, her warriors could have just caught it. Then Cheol-ryong wouldn't be able to do anything. The girl almost ground her teeth with anger, but she could not say anything against the young man's arguments. Then she simply ordered her warriors to catch this cat, and they, without a second's hesitation, rushed in pursuit. Hwa-rin and Cheol-ryong were overjoyed that the cat was now in the forest, safe, and their plan had worked. Only in the evening did the warriors return to the courtyard of the hospital from the forest, saying that they had lost the cat and were unable to catch it. This made the girl even more angry than before. Couldn't the warriors of the Jaegil clan catch one pathetic cat? The warriors told her that it was no ordinary cat, but must be a spirit. The girl gathered her courage and warned Cheol-ryong that sooner or later the cat would return, which meant that her warriors would return and catch him again. Teacher Mo quietly told Hwa-rin that she too had guessed who the girl was. She also said that Yohei was often called the demoness Jaegil because of her personality. But at the same time, this young girl overtook the geniuses of the clan and became the vice head of the intelligence service. Hwa-rin told the woman that he thought it was best for them not to reveal who they really were to Yohei for now. The boy didn't know what Yohei was planning, but he didn't like it anymore. However, they had to continue their search for now. Hwa-rin approached Cheol-ryong, noticing how restless the boy looked, and asked him if he was worried about Baek-sol. The boy sullenly replied that he was. Then the young man ruffled the brown-haired man's hair and gently told him not to be afraid. The warriors would not catch the cat. He smiled at the younger one and said that he himself knew how fast his cat ran. Teacher Mo watched their conversation with a smile and thought that the young master had really changed a lot for the better. A little later at night, the healer came to the two rising winds and brought them each a mug of wine made from the best medicinal herbs for helping him today. As soon as the man handed them the mugs and told them to help themselves, they immediately snatched the drinks from his hands. The guys happily poured the tasty drink into themselves, praising it to the man. Noticing how quickly the boys finished the wine, the healer said that he would run and bring them more of the drink. Mo watched them from around the corner for a short while, but soon left. She walked around the courtyard mindlessly until she came across Hwa-rin and Cheol-ryong, who were having a duel. The girl noticed that the child had a stance as if he was studying martial arts. Without further ado, the boy decided to make his first attack on Hwa-rin and rushed forward, holding a training sword in his hands. Hwa-rin deflected the boy's attack with one deft blow and knocked the sword out of his hands. There was something in their duel that greatly surprised Teacher Mo. Cheol-ryong, although a child, was also a small warrior trained in martial arts, and Hwa-rin parried the attack of the bamboo sword with just a flimsy branch. The master's talents grew at an unimaginable speed, but it seemed to be beyond her imagination. The next morning, Hwa-rin woke up early enough and went out into the yard, stretching. Suddenly he noticed that standing in front of him in the courtyard was none other than Mrs. Jagal, whom he had seen the day before. He wished her good morning, but she answered him that there was nothing good about this morning. She irritably threatened him, clenching her hands into fists, that she would still catch this cat and take it for herself. The guy grinned and asked why then she didn't catch him right now. The girl turned away and answered him that she was just busy now, but next time she would definitely catch him. The brunette just waved goodbye and wished her a good journey. She suddenly stopped and turned to him. Yohei said that she must have misheard last time and asked him which clan Hua-Rin was from. The boy told her that they were from a small clan in Hanam. She probably didn't know about that. Such an evasive answer infuriated the girl even more, so she silently left with her warriors. Hua-Rin wanted to hope that he wouldn't run into her in the Jagal clan. The girl walked with her squad towards the forest, and she thought that everything in Hua-Rin's words was a lie down to the last word. She was sure that he could not have such great power and at the same time be only a master from some small unknown clan, and his companions were unusual. Yohei told her warriors that she needed information about these wanderers. She wanted to know who they were and where they were from, what clan they were from, what martial arts they used. The girl wanted to know absolutely everything, and the obedient warriors agreed to get this information for her. On this day, Hua-Rin also went out to search for the manuscript, but his efforts did not live up to his expectations. He searched the entire area, but could not find a single clue about his whereabouts. The guy understood that he couldn't search for this canon in this place forever. If the sun set again, he would have to spend another day here, which he could not afford. Therefore, when the brunette returned to the hospital, he told his companions that they would leave this place as soon as they were ready. They agreed with the guy and said that it was high time. They had been sitting there doing nothing for too long. Without thinking twice, the ascending ghosts, together with Master Mo, went inside the building to collect things. And at that very moment, Chil Ryong appeared in the courtyard. He quickly ran to meet Hua-Rin and asked him for help. The guy was alarmed by how worried the brown-haired man looked. He asked him what happened. The boy said that something had clearly happened to Bek-Sol. He was sure that the cat was injured. He showed Hua-Rin a ball of wool that was stained with blood. He found it in the forest. It looks like the warriors who injured the cat were trying so hard to catch him. The boy noticed that the cat should have returned long ago. Perhaps he was seriously injured. Hua-Rin seriously asked Chil Ryong if he knew where the cat's revier was. He explained that he meant the place where the boy first met him. Chil Ryong replied with tears in his eyes that he remembered this place. Then Hua-Rin agreed to help the younger with his problem and suggested that they go to that place together to search. The brunette said with a smile that since Bek-Sol was practically the boy's family, he was obliged to help. Hua-Rin picked up the boy in his arms and he jumped on his back, holding tightly to his shoulders. They walked through the forest to the cat's hideout, with Chil Ryong showing the way. This place turned out to be a small clearing that went to the foot of a low mountain. Hua-Rin looked down, and the boy told him that he had to go down a steep slope. That's where he found the cat for the very first time. The young man deftly climbed down, and then he and the brown-haired man began searching. They looked around the area and called the cat to them. After some time, Chil Ryong came across something in the bushes and called the elder to him. On the grass they found more fur and blood, which clearly belonged to the younger boy's pet. It was painful to see, but it meant that the cat was somewhere nearby. They continued their search, still shouting Bek-Sol's name. Hua-Rin kept trying to calm his younger friend down, saying that the cat was already somewhere nearby and they would find him soon. Soon the brunette came across a curious boulder that was pressed against the rock. He leaned against the boulder and listened. The wind could be heard behind the boulder, which meant that there was empty space behind the stone. Then Hua-Rin decided to move it. He tried his best, but the boulder could not be moved. Then he thought that he could call for help from Master Mo or one of the Ghost Blades, since he clearly couldn't cope here alone. But there was no need to do this. Chil Ryong walked around the boulder and found a hole in its corner. Hua-Rin chuckled and said that it must have formed when the boy moved the rock. But the boy said that this path had been here from the very beginning, which hit the brunette's self-esteem a little. The brown-haired man suggested that his cat might be hiding there. The elder volunteered to check it out and immediately climbed into a small crack. He said that it could be dangerous, so he warned that he would climb there alone. When the dark-haired man was already inside, he discovered that there was a fairly large cave. He did not expect that the space behind the stone could be so huge. Suddenly the young man was illuminated by a flash of very bright light and he covered his eyes, just so as not to actually go blind. But after a moment the light became less harsh on his eyes. Hua-Rin noticed that this glow was coming from an elderly man who was in the cave. Before him opened a view of a huge pedestal on which sat this grey-haired master, to which led a small row of steps. Suddenly it dawned on the guy that he had found the canon of the mysterious heavenly Dao Taiji. So the man in front of him was none other than the mysterious heavenly Dao Taiji, that is, the immortal Zhang Sanfeng. Hua Rin finally found him. That meant that canon had to be nearby too. And not far from the pedestal, the guy noticed a wounded white cat, which was exactly what he was looking for. True, this whole situation was quite strange and did not fit into the young man's head. Meanwhile, Chil Ryong outside the cave was going crazy with excitement. He was pacing back and forth anxiously. And then he suddenly heard a muffled meow from the cave, which he immediately recognized as Bak Sol's voice. At first, some strange dark curls appeared from the cave, and the boy could not understand what it was. His first reaction was intense fear, as if he had seen a monster. But the boy quickly realized that it was only Hua Rin who was climbing out of the cave. The young man got out of there, and in his arms was the long-awaited Bak Sol, and Chil Ryong was very happy to see him. But the joy quickly turned to sadness, because taking the cat from the elder's hands, he noticed that Bak Sol was completely exhausted. Seeing his pet in such a state, the boy burst into tears even more. But Hua Rin did his job, and did not try to calm the child down. On the contrary, he turned his back on him, because he had made a more important discovery for himself in the cave. In his hands, the young man held the very manuscript he had been looking for all this time. Then in the cave, Hua Rin first went and squatted down next to the cat. He stroked the animal and told him how much his owner missed the cat. The brunette noticed with relief that Bak Sol's wound was not very serious, which meant it could be cured. After stroking the cat's fur, the guy suggested that perhaps this creature was the spirit pet of Zhang Sanfeng himself. He took the cat in his arms and was about to head towards the exit of the cave, since the animal needed to be treated quickly and Hua Rin needed to go home. But at that moment he heard a strange noise behind him and turned around. Hua Rin was amazed to see the old master begin to evaporate into thin air, disappearing like ashes in the wind. When the master finally disappeared, Hua Rin noticed that in his place appeared the very same canon of the mysterious heavenly Dao Taiji. Standing outside while Chil Ryong was busy with the cat, Hua Rin thought that if he hadn't gone into the cave after the cat, he would never have found this secret manuscript. But in his past life, he would never have thought of helping the boy. Not only those around him, but Hua Rin himself also noticed how much he had changed. There were still many things in the future that the guy had to change. He had to prevent the Tianzhong clan from being destroyed and make them become the best in Hanam. The brunette had to protect his family so that they would live happily and not know grief. He was determined and confident that he would definitely achieve this. When they returned to the hospital, Chil Ryong's grandfather bandaged the cat and did everything he could. The healer assured his grandson that there was nothing in the wounds that would threaten Bak Sol's life, so he should recover quickly. Having dealt with this matter, Hua Rin returned to his companions. Master Mo was angry at the young master for telling them to get ready to go, while he himself disappeared into thin air. She told him to warn them next time if he went somewhere. Hua Rin apologized and explained that he was just very upset by the news that the cat was injured. He told his escorts that they had finally found the cat, and that Hua Rin had also found what he was looking for, so they could hit the road. But Master Mo was hooked on the young master's words about finding something he was looking for. She wanted to know if he had found wild ginseng. The young man answered mysteriously that he had found something much more valuable. Of course, the woman was interested to know what the gentleman was talking about. But instead of telling the truth, he intriguingly replied that he had found the future. It is not surprising that his companions did not understand anything, but Hua Rin did not intend to answer their questions. When they were fully prepared to leave, Hua Rin approached the healer to say goodbye and thank him for receiving him. Chil Ryong was visibly upset that the guy was about to leave them. Then Hua Rin took out something from his bosom, saying that he had something for the boy in case he needed help. He gave the brown-haired man a beautiful amulet with images of dragons, and said that if something suddenly happened, then Chil Ryong could take it and come to Hanam, to the Tianzhong clan. Hua Rin warned the boy that he would need this thing, so he should keep it and not lose it. He smiled at the boy and said goodbye to him. The brunette was about to leave, but then the healer called out to him and asked the last question. He asked why Hua Rin treated Chil Ryong so well. They were just simple villagers who collected herbs and treated people, but he, a noble lord, stood up for them and helped, although he saw them for the first time. The elder treated him without negativity, but was clearly surprised and a little wary of such behavior of the young gentleman. Then Huarin asked himself this question in order to understand the real reasons for his actions. He admitted that the whole problem was in the manuscript. However, he eventually understood and said that it was because he thought that Cheol Ryong was similar to himself. The elder was surprised to hear such an answer, but it clarified a lot for him. Now they did not detain the young gentleman and finally said goodbye to him, waving their hands. When Huarin walked away from the hospital, Master Mo asked him if he had given those people the jade amulet of their clan. The guy smiled at her brightly and said that he had learned a lot from Cheol Ryong during this time. He realized during these days that this boy was much more valuable than any amulet. Suddenly the boy was also flooded with memories of his first meeting with Yun Hua. She came up to him one evening, bowed, and said that from that moment on she would serve the young master. And when she introduced herself, she looked very excited and agitated, even her cheeks were flushed. Initially the guy was quite surprised by her sudden appearance, but he quickly softened and replied that he was pleased to meet her. Without wasting any time, Huarin's team set out and rode their horses into the forest from where they had come. Master Mo noticed that the young man was very happy about something, as he was constantly smiling. Huarin asked cheerfully, "Was it really that noticeable?" One of the Ghostblades asked him if they were going to go to the Jagle family now, but Huarin replied that they were going home. The woman was outraged. He had said that he was going to visit his fiancée. The Jagal estate was very close. Could he just turn around and leave now? The brunette calmly replied that, in his opinion, it was still too early to visit the Jagal estate and pay a visit to his bride. His companion supported the girl and said that perhaps it was worth visiting them and at least informing them that the young gentleman had recovered. Their conversation was interrupted when the whole company suddenly smelled blood. Master Mo was even able to accurately guess the direction from which this smell was coming. They went to that place and noticed with horror that dead people were lying in a large clearing. Even more frightening was the fact that all these dead were warriors. Who could have dealt with them so easily? The companions wanted to hear from the young gentleman what their plan of further action was. Huarin told them that there was no need to interfere in other people's squabbles. He was going to return to the clan as planned. While the Ghostblades were twisting their noses, Huarin moved straight ahead to scout out the situation. After a few moments, having heard nothing from their master, his companions asked what he had managed to see. Huarin suddenly changed his mind and said that they couldn't just pass by after all. They had to find out what happened since the dead were bodyguards of the Jagle family.